it took me a little longer. My meeting room got booked, so I couldn't kick them out.
Oh, no worries. I'm Julia. It's nice to finally meet you. And can you grab some of them in there? Cool. So I'll go ahead and kind of show you around our studio. There's some people sitting to the side, so I always like to show our guests like that there's some folks off screen over here that might not be in sight. But thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to give you like a quick intro and then let you take it from there. Does that sound good?
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
Okay. So with us today is Michaela Moore from Mailchimp, and she's part of their user experience team. And I reached out to Mailchimp because I'm just a huge fan of their design work, and they have a weekly UX newsletter, which fits very well in brand. But if anybody has used Mailchimp, it's just a totally new and delightful way to send something that's pretty old and boring email. So I'm really excited to hear more about the process of their team and what Michaela does on a day-to-day basis. So I'm going to let her take it away.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to try to do the screen sharing with you guys, see if we can get it set up. Okay, can you guys see that?
Sometimes it takes a minute.
Okay.
But we are seeing black.
There
it is.
Well, I wonder if it's going to make me show you. Let's see. I'm trying to make it in play mode. I don't know if it'll play while it's in screen share as well. How about now? Is it still black?
Yes. It was on flat, or we saw what you're doing now. It's black.
Okay. All right, so it won't let it work in presenter mode, but I'll just fix that real quick. All right. How's that?
Cool.
All right. So I'm gonna kind of talk to you about my background, how I kind of got in design, kind of give a brief overview of that, what Mailchimp is, and how our design team works, and then kind of tell you about our process. All right. So again, I started in design. I got my degree from South Carolina, Francis Marion University in South Carolina. My degree is mostly focused on visual communications, which is pretty much graphic design. At the time, there wasn't really any web courses, or we didn't even have an HCI program or anything about interactive design. It was mostly focused on traditional design. So visual design is kind of my specialty. And after college, I graduated.
Sorry to interrupt. We're seeing just a black screen. Is it supposed to be black right now? Oh, there we go. Okay, we see it now.
What's out?
Okay, we see degree and agency. Cool.
Cool. Okay. So I, after college, got a job at an advertising agency, hired on as a web designer or / digital designer. They're mostly focused on building marketing websites or mobile apps for clients. It was a completely new thing for me. This was almost 3 years ago, I think, so when I first started. I kind of started building out small microsites for clients for tourism locations, so like in North Carolina and Tennessee and South Carolina, and then slowly moved on to larger sites for universities. And as I began to work, I noticed that the process at an advertising agency was completely different. It was more flat, and there's not a lot of flexibility in how a project is handled. So you kind of hope for a research phase, a concept phase, design, development, test, and you kind of want those to all work together in sync. But in an agency environment, especially where I was the designer kind of handled all of the research at the concepting phase and just handed off materials to move on to the next project or plan. Projects typically lasted anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks, or if you were lucky, you maybe got an extra month or two. So an entire read and design, would happen relatively quickly. I started noticing issues through that kind of mindset. So as projects grew, I had to become a better designer in the sense of learning how to be more efficient. So as I started researching different methods of design and not just trying to figure it out on my own, I started stumbling across the ideas of systematic design. And more specifically, a web designer named Brad Frost developed this kind of broken down idea of atomic design, where you take your base elements and your key components of design and you slowly build up to bigger pieces. So you start off with designing essentially your form elements and then how that form creates into a larger piece, and then you build out a layout. And it makes taking larger sites, such as like a university website, it breaks it down and makes it easier to comprehend. So I saw that working in an agency environment really wouldn't allow for me to really work in that kind of mindset. So I started searching out for other places that would allow me to focus on that. That's kind of how I landed at Mailchimp. I started learning about the culture of it and their focus on products and how they wanted to build the best thing. And what really caught my idea was this idea of listen hard and change fast. And what that means is Mailchimp takes a lot of feedback from their users, and they research a lot to find out how they can improve their products and how they can better adapt it and make the experience better for anyone who may have to use it, from customer A to customer B. So a little bit about Mailchimp, if you're not familiar with it, the email marketing service that allows you to create customized campaigns to then send to your subscriber base. So companies, mostly it started off as like small mom and pop shops, would set up an email list and create customized campaigns to send out to the user base. Currently, we have over 7 million active users and send on an average day about 500 million emails. And again, Mailchimp's the native, or not native, the desktop app is our primary product that I work on. We have both iOS apps as well, but it allows for users to create campaigns based on products that they sell or blogs that they curate and send emails targeted to their audience. And then once you send out emails, we can gather that from their subscriber activity and aggregate it all together and allow them to learn more about their user base. The idea behind Mailchimp is to allow the customers, our customer, who may have like a business or something, to connect their customer. It's about creating connections and helping and essentially empowering the little guy to stand out, to help them all. So once I started at Mailchimp, it was a completely new process. I was moving from marketing to a product system design, essentially. So the process was completely different. Marketing was, currently, you may be working on 2 to 3 projects at a time, and the time frames are much quicker. But it was software design, you work at a slightly faster pace, but at the same time, you're working on a small element of that software. So I work on the product team, specifically through the product team of Mailchimp. There are quite a few teams here. We have marketing teams, we have support team, we have campaign and stuff. But mostly I focus on the product itself, so the app. And on the product team, we have sub-teams, like software engineers, front-end developers, mobile developers, mobile UI designers as well as UI designers for the app itself. And within the product team, we also work with the other 3 other core teams, which are QA, quality assurance. They're the team that actually test the app, and they run scripts on it to make sure that it's functioning like all the people work, and the ones help find the bugs. We also work with the data science customer research team, which gather all qualitative and quantitative data to help us guide us as we build out new features. So with the different teams, we don't necessarily have like a specific UX team, but the entire product team itself focuses on UX. So each individual team, the customer research team, their focus on UX is about finding issues that customers may be facing. And the UI designers, our focus is making the feature or the app itself usable, making it legible, making it feel as it should. The development team and engineering consists of front end and back end developers, and they focus on building out the code and building out the features itself as seamlessly as possible and as cleanly so that the app can run as quickly as possible. And then quality assurance is to find the issues, the underlying issues in the app, so if there's bugs in the code, they can help point it out. So this idea of a single individual, like separate branch of UX, it doesn't really exist anymore. It's more so the entire product team. Their goal is to focus on UX and find how to always improve the app. So, like I was saying, my role here is I focus on UI design, and what that means is I get to work with as we build out new features or as we maintain features, understanding the user flow of this individual feature of the app itself, the interactions that users will face through understanding the content, how to correctly organize it, and what kind of content is necessary in the context of a feature. The visual design of our app, as well as motion and interactions. So basic animations and transitions. So the one thing with UI design is about, it's not so much making it pretty, but it's focusing on the small details and something usable. You shouldn't really ever have to explain good design. It should just work. So my main tool sets here that I use mostly sketching out on paper or using paper 53 for sketching. We also use Photoshop for high fidelity comps to explain ideas further on. We're using Envision, the prototyping tool that allows you to create interactive user flows. So you just take your static comps, upload, and can collaborate with your teams and film how you're kind of envisioning something to work. And Illustrator for creating illustrations and iconography. But probably 70% of the work we do is sketching out on paper and notebooks and on whiteboards, trying to understand the flow of the feature and understanding how we should present the feature. So with Mailchimp, we have a standard pattern library that we adhere to and keep consistency throughout the app. We understand that with a pattern or with a system, users aren't having to constantly run new features. Like with the new features, they're able to recognize the patterns they see that they've currently already learned. So part of our goal is to maintain this and keep it consistent and keep the patterns big enough to where they're adaptable as the app itself grows. So now I'm going to kind of give an idea of how our teams kind of work building out a feature and how my role kind of plays into that. So building out Mailchimp, we have 4 to 6 week release cycles where we try to package in a bunch of features, whether it be bug fixes or updates to the app. or if it's a completely new feature that we've discovered that would be useful to the app. So within those things we do design, we do research, design, development, and testing, and each core team and each section of the product team is able to invest in time and help build out the feature. So we always start with customer research, or the way we kind of gather feedback is research and feedback from our actual customer base. So we have a customer research team that travels through the US and even over in Europe to find customers who use Mailchimp every day or use it as a means to help their job or their business. So we look for people that either run blogs or have their own shop and find out how they use Mailchimp. Their main goal first off is to focus on how people use it, so they learn about their business in the sense like why they need Mailchimp and how it actually enables them to promote their business. The next means of feedback we receive is through support, and we can gauge by the amount of tickets that come in, the types of tickets, the types of issues that people are running into, and we can gauge it through support and find out how we can improve the app, or if we see a need that may be coming through that we could fix. The third way that we learn how to improve the app itself is we become our own user, and we use it every month to send out a newsletter. All within the app itself, I'm looking around trying to find how to improve it, but it seems when you don't really get the full extent of what your app can do until you actually use it. And kind of the last way that we figure out feedback for features is more organic. So we try to focus on not having too many meetings, but we love collaboration amongst the teams and finding out how we can improve. So, I'm not sure how familiar you guys are with Mailchimp, but it originally started as an actual side project for the CEOs Dan and Ben. They worked at an agency back in the early 2000s, and when the agency closed, they had this piece of software that they used for their own personal email system. So they then decided to put all their efforts into Mailchimp and help grow it. So the Mailchimp started off as a side project and bloomed into like a big app itself. So like the side projects, we always have like small meetings and stuff. And from that, we can determine what kind of features we want to build. So one of those things that we realized in kind of collaborating with the other teams was customers are having issues sending automated messages to Mailchimp. At the time, we had a feature called autoresponders, but they were completely overlooked. People were saying how the tool was really complex and they weren't really sure how to use it. And they had heard about this thing called automation, and we didn't have it. But ironically, automation technically existed through autoresponders. So we started to research maybe feature itself was too complex, and how could we break it down to be more digestible for the users. So when we started gathering research, we learned the common theme of the idea of these recipes that we wanted to create for autoresponders. And we wanted to make the tool as simple as possible. So we started to build or update this feature. We started basically at a table sketching out ideas of what this feature could entail. We talked with our research team to find out how we can improve and what kind of issues are people having. And the common theme of we just wanted to do it. We just want the automation to kind of work. We want it to be simple. We want it to be automatically configured. So we started with a recipe. We started with these cards. We would write out basic, what would be required for this event to occur. So, for example, we had a recipe for when subscribers added to a list, it would trigger an email to be sent out. So just if you've ever received a message like when someone's away, or send an email when someone's away on vacation, you would get a reply back letting you know that that person was temporarily gone. Well, this is kind of similar. It's like you can personalize these messages a little bit more. So if you run a business and someone purchased a product, as soon as they purchase that product in a certain amount of time, you could then send a message, or you could send out related material to the product that they purchased. So we started with these ideas of recipes and started building out or thinking through what would be required for each recipe, what would kind of the flow and understand what the constraints were of the feature itself. So as we started with these really vague concepts of automation, we started refining these ideas and rescheduling. We started doing user flows, and we started refining down to more of what would actually be required. So we worked with, we started off the project working with our lead UX design / developer. And we sat at a table and we sketched out for each recipe what would be necessary, what would be required. And then as we slowly refined those ideas, we started getting a bigger picture of the feature itself. Then after we kind of got a base understanding of what would work, like me and another designer started going into Photoshop where we started laying out these basic sketches what they actually meant. And once you start designing in Photoshop, it just becomes an iterative process of slowly adapting the feature itself. So here's kind of a little gift of how the slowly over time evolved into what it is now. So it's really iterative. You move kind of, it's like a messy world where you're moving fast and you're moving slow at the same time. You don't need too great of change, but you slowly see how the feature will develop as you start to build out the base idea. And at the time, we hadn't hit, like, we weren't trying to build simultaneously with the developers. We were still trying to understand how the feature itself would work. But as we refined it more and more, we started putting it into Vision, where it allowed us to create an interactive prototype to share with a customer research team and with our engineers to see how we can improve, like how we can improve this base idea and slowly refine on top of it. And as we gather feedback, we would return to our docs, or we would return with the engineering team and see how we can improve. And as we were doing, like as the team started taking on their position for automation, me and another designer started going through the points and refining out what automation looked like, what the workflows look like, what workflows meant. And UI design is, as I say, it's in the details. It's the small little things you see, but it's also the larger ideas that you start to add. So like adding a little bit of emotion to the design we're adding, making it feel like. And so through illustrations, we try to simplify what people were saying was so complex. So as we continued to build through the product, we started focusing on how all the little pieces would start to come together. So at the top where you see you can set a delay trigger between each email, started focusing on how that little piece would affect each corresponding email, what it meant to actually drag and rearrange around your emails, and then what it would look like for once you have subscribers who receive the first email, what did it mean to receive the second and the third? Or what happens if you set up this configuration and you need to pause it? So we have to go through all these little details and find out what it actually meant. And doing so, we work with in Photoshop and we work with the engineering team as they build out these features and see what it meant, like how people would interact with it. And as we slowly build up to a bigger, to the actual feature itself and started testing it, once we launched it, we kind of went back to our motto of listening hard and kind of changing fast, so we would adapt based off of what our user feedback was. So we wouldn't really do beta testing or sending out like we don't do beta testing on our users, or we don't really go to alpha testing. So we try to build as quickly as possible and get feedback directly from all of our users, and slowly iterate on top once we've shipped it. So that's I didn't like the I didn't cover anything. You guys have any questions? Or a lot of information all at once.
Yeah, I have a question. That was really cool to see the whole process. So one thing that I know about, which I'm sure no one else here knows about, because I'm friends with Julie, and I'm just like a really big fan of Mailchimp in general. But one of the really cool things about like the product you build is like the culture behind it. So she's told me about a lot of the projects that go on sort of behind the scenes, and they crop up through like just like blogs and things that I look at, things like that. Like the artist Steve Esco Powers is doing some murals for you all right now, and there's like a rocket ship in your office that went to space with like a little Freddy in it, and there's like some like kitsch and whimsy and fun to the brand, like those little knit hats and things like that. So I was wondering if you could talk about what that, some of those really cool things going on, and tell a little bit how that feeds back into like the work that you all do.
Okay. So with the side projects, it's kind of a multi-way of allowing team collaboration. So with the 31 to the stratosphere, it was the delivery team, the ones that kind of maintain the mass amount of emails that are sent out, and then working with our team to create this little object that would carry up into the stratosphere and let it deliver. And the idea is to kind of bring teams together and collaborate and have fun and enjoy what they do. Because with experimentation, even though it may not be related directly to what you're doing every day, to help teach you something that you may not know beforehand that you could then potentially later apply. A side project that actually can turn into something like Tiny Letters, another an email app that we have. Tiny Letters is also focused on small amount of subscriber followers that allow you to create more custom, personalized emails. And it was kind of just one of the things that came out of the blue. It's like, hey, what about the people that don't necessarily have thousands of followers, and they just want to really curated letters about. And here recently, the people that maintain Tiny Letter just had a little group gathering out in California where it gathered a bunch of writers that actually use Tiny Letter to have a retreat. And really said they were able to meet their own customer base and kind of hang out with them and see how they use the app. So that kind of
I have a question concerning those side projects. Hi, my name is Kazak. So how do you make time, like in your busy schedule, like you already have, a lot of time that you commit to actually doing work that you're supposed to do. So how do you and your team just make time for these side projects?
So the cool thing about like when you kind of run your own app and you don't have to worry about other investors, is whenever we need state, we're able to kind of push back as we need. We don't have to release on a specific day. So if there's something that we're going to experiment with or take a little bit more time, here's a side project that pops up. We can see how potentially better what we're already working on. We just kind of make time. The way we all work is slightly different, so the way we maintain time and the different departments. Some things take a little bit longer. They may be working a little bit further ahead in the future versus someone who's working right now on the current release. Eventually,
We're frozen. Oh, we have to pause it.
So this is okay.
Sorry, we lost a little bit of that. What did you say at the end?
Like that
I don't think we heard like most of it after what?
You were talking about with your teams and how you guys make time for the side projects.
So for example, like, so I work on specifically with UX design, I work in the product team. So I may not be working on something related to specific release. I may be working on like for later on for later releases. So I have a little bit more free time. We just kind of shift it around the department and we just kind of make it happen. Like we can push back release date if needed. So we're not forced to schedule it.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone have a question? Okay, I have another question. So I worked at a product this summer, and also I worked at Spotify this summer interning. And one thing that I found difficult, like not on Spotify's behalf, on mine, was like just figuring out who I need to get into the room and like how to get decisions made when you're working on a product that's yours and you can push back release dates, and some things are, you know, like what am I looking for? Like when you were talking about agency versus in-house, like the speed at which your work needs to be done is totally varied. So like, what are effective ways that you've found that you can kind of get decisions made and move projects forward?
So in an agency environment, it's a little bit different because you have different stakeholders. You have an actual client, and then you have your project managers, and you have all your different teams that are spread out. So actually getting them in a room can be very difficult. But here at Mailchimp, we try to keep the teams that will be working on features relatively small. So like with automation, it seems like it's a company, but it was actually maybe a team of 10 people, maybe 10 to 15 people working on it. So when you work in a smaller, close-knit group, you can make decisions quicker. You don't have to go through the politics and change or find out, hey, because we need to do this other thing. It's being able to work independently of the overarching product team. So within the product team, we have small teams that work together and build quickly. So that's kind of what makes them so different.
So, like so on these essential teams, or like these small teams, who's on them? Like how many people?
So I counted, like I think we had almost like 400 people as a company keeping with that actual product team was only 22, maybe 23 people, which consists of software engineers, front-end developers, and mobile devs and mobile designers. So I'm one of 2 UI designers. There are 4 front-end devs, maybe 6 or 7 software engineers. So within those sections, we would grab 1 or 2 people and have 1 engineer that actually would build out the back end, 1 designer to run the front end. So your team that was 20 people is actually now 4 for me. So within that small group, you can build a lot quicker.
Gotcha. And then are you, like, is there anybody who oversees, like, the platform, or is it just, like, that team can push code?
So we all have an understanding of how the app works. We all know what the direction that we want to move forward on, and it's the team itself making the decisions. It's through the research that we've gathered, it's us being able to make informed decisions like where should we go, or it's feasible for we want. And always as we launch, if you see that you missed something, or if something failed and went wrong, you can always quickly fix it. That's kind of one of the things about the whole listen hard change fast. If it ships and say you made a wrong decision, that small team can get together, quickly and make a decision on how to fix it and push it. So that's one of the really neat things about Mailchimp.
Cool.
Hi, Mark. You mentioned earlier that everyone at Mailchimp really cares about UX, and that's why it leads to great products. But how do you get everyone to care, especially like back-end devs or something like? how to convince them, or to just hire backends that love design as well? So that's my question.
So that is difficult. The first thing we mentioned hires is they look for the types of people that care about the thing. So a back-end engineer may not care about it, that looks great, but what they do care about is if it works on their end. So they can have their own idea of what engineering, an engineering good experience. Where on my end, I focus on this part of usability. Like, can someone actually use this from a visual perspective, or can read it? Does it make sense? Like, are they able to comprehend a complex feature? So we all care. We all have kind of like personal opinions of we care about what we're making. So when you can put it together, you fit all the spectrum, like all the different spectrums of feedbacks. So engineers may not care about what I care about as far as good design, but they understand to create a more cohesive experience is necessary. So it's just finding about, not necessarily leveraging, but it's saying, find what that person may care about and kind of understand showing that they learn.
I have another question. When you were giving your presentation, you talked about your research process, and one of the methods that you described was become your own user. And so what kind of things have you learned from using that method, and when is the right time to use that method, and then when is the right time to use other methods like interviews and research from supports?
Okay. So for example, a few weeks ago, I was trying to understand what features that we have and see, just kind of using the app. I was playing with A/B testing, and A/B testing allows you to set up two variations of a campaign and test one variable, set that variable and see which of the two perform better. At the time, I was just seeing how a send time, like so if a person will receive it on this day versus this day, which is better. And while I was setting up the campaign, I was playing around in our account, and I almost sent out an email to our entire business accidentally. And I noticed that the feature itself wasn't very well explained. And if it's something that I completely missed, imagine that other people would do so. So kind of having this understanding of an issue that I just ran into, I can go to support team and see if they've had similar issues with people sending out campaigns that were unintended. I can go to our customer research, kind of like validate my own, if I find something disturbing or find something that didn't work well. Like I can use other areas to validate it instead of using a couple of bias.
Thank you.
Hi there, I'm Nicole. I was wondering, what's your favorite part about working for Mailchimp?
Can you say that one more time?
What would be like your favorite thing about working at Mailchimp? If you could put a couple of words about it.
Probably the biggest difference that I noticed from the two environments that I've been with marketing and product is we tend to have people who understand all the different teams. So you're kind of a generalist, but you have a specialty. You have a skill set that you're really good at and you really care about and you really like that. And Mailchimp allows you to focus on that and you don't have to do a little bit of everything. Like you have teams that's what they care about. So if everybody knows what they do specifically, so what customer research is, you have helping the customers to find out like how can we improve something, and I would actually make it work. You have two people that coming together to do what they love, so you create a product versus like being stretched thin or doing it yourself. You don't really necessarily get the time to focus on each one and put in the care that you want to. So being able to kind of specialize and put the time into what I do is really what makes a difference of why I really like it here. You're actually really doing something that's great instead of just, we'll try to get it the next time. We'll try to, make the next project better. That's a common thing that I noticed at my last place that I wanted to, I want to really build something if I'm going to put in the time.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have any other questions? I feel like I have a good
maybe last question for you. So I know that you are hiring and expanding. So we have our program's 2 years long. So some people are looking for internships right now, and some people are looking for full-time work. And I was wondering what makes great hires for you all.
So, always different. So you guys are your folks mostly on PCI. So, depending on what kind of field you want to go into, if you want to go more marketing focused or product driven or software driven, if you have a skill set that you're really passionate about, showcasing that really helps instead of just it kind of trumps having experience outside. So if you have a side project that you're working on that you're trying to promote or showcase, showing something that you care about and putting that into your portfolio or figuring out for an interview, playing that, it shows passion. That's always helpful. I guess having a good understanding of the process. So right now I'm always looking for UI designers. What we've noticed is that people, they'll have a little bit of user experience design and focus, but they're lacking maybe visual design. So just kind of really understanding what they're looking for and going forward and just kind of show them passion.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it, and I'm so glad we were able to set this up and have you in our studio.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Thanks. All right, bye, Michaela.
Bye.